I'd like to call the public service meeting to order. All members are present, and the first thing is to get approval of our minutes from our previous meeting. Is there a motion for approval? I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the minutes pass. Okay, we have nothing on our old agenda, but we do have a number of things on our new agenda for this week. Our first piece that comes before us today is a resolution declaring it necessary to improve Waterloo Road between the termini of Glenmount Avenue and Kelly Avenue by resurfacing and declaring an emergency. Mr. Letta.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Yes, this is resurfacing of Waterloo Road, as the limits you said there. We are going to manage this project, even though the money is coming from ODOT. So we will advertise, bid the project, and it will be done in the spring. Well, we'll start on it in the spring. So this piece and the next piece is going to be all of Waterloo Road from Manchester Road all the way to Kelly. So part of Ward 9, part of Ward 7, and then part of Ward 5. So it's about a 3.5 mile stretch.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Are there any comments from members of the committee? Any comments from any member or council? Seeing none.
Consent would be fine.
Okay. May I ask, when will this happen? Did you say in the spring?
We'll start on the spring. Obviously, the asphalt plants have to open.
Right.
We'll advertise and bid it this winter. So.
Okay, good.
Quickie.
Councilman Kamer would like his name added to this case. And the pleasure of the department was for consent. Do I have a motion for consent? I have a motion for consent. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. The next piece to come before us is a resolution declaring it necessary to improve Waterloo Road between the termini of Manchester Road and Glenmount Avenue by resurfacing and declaring an emergency. Mr. Little.
This is almost the same exact piece as the previous piece of legislation, Madam Chairman, and consent would be fine.
Okay. And is this also an ODOT project that you'll be able to manage the project?
Yes, we are.
Or an ODOT
yes,
thing, but you'll
funded.
be able to manage the project. Okay, good. Any questions from members of the committee? Councilwoman?
Thank you. Question, when I go down to the report, it has a list of where the money is coming from. So at what point, is any of this from issue 4? Or is it coming from other funding sources?
Well, the 80,000 of this year for the design, we did fund that with issue 4. We put GO in there just for the application. So once we get the project bid and we see where the asphalt prices come in, and then we will probably use part of issue 4 and probably part of gas tax to fund this. But in something like this, we have used GO before.
Okay, and what is the STVG fund?
Surface Transportation Block Grant.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions? Anyone else from the committee? No? Okay. Clerk, Councilman Kamer would like his name added to this piece. Is there anyone in council chambers that has a question? Any council members? They have a question about this? I do. Councilwoman?
So this is partly a follow-up to that, because that was actually my same question. So it won't come back here when you decide on where the funds are coming from?
No.
Okay.
No. It'll come out of the capital budget. Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay.
Planning is putting in the capital budget for next year.
Okay.
So the 80,000 was in this year's capital budget, and then you'll see next year in the capital budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there a motion for consent? That's what I thought. And I have a second. There's been a motion, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. Number 7, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into the water pollution control Loan Fund agreements with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency and/or the Ohio Water Development Authority for the construction of the sanitary sewer reconstruction 2018 large diameter lining project and declaring an emergency.
Madam Chairman, excuse me. I
Madam
think
Chair,
we
you
skipped number
skipped number
6.
6.
I did, because I put all my notes there. So I will go, I'm happy to go back to number 6.
Okay, thank you.
You know what, but I'm really glad that we're paying attention, because I was going to keep on. Number 6, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into contract or contracts with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the Safe Routes to School 2019 program and declaring an emergency.
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam
Lovell.
Chairman, members of the committee. This is a non-infrastructure Safe Routes to School application we're putting in. So we're applying for $60,000, and when we're awarded those funds, traditionally we're awarded these funds, we will pass this on to Summit County Public Health, and then they will administer the program. So it's education like cross-guard training, education for the Safe Routes to School.
Thank you so much. If I recall correctly, this program has been in service, I would say, for 6 years maybe now. I think it's been about 6 years, and
I think at least.
I mean, they're getting more and more robust and reaching out farther, so this would be good for the educational. Any comments from the committee? Any comments from members of council? Hearing and seeing none?
Consent's fine.
Okay. May I have a motion for consent? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none. We will now go on to number 7. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into water pollution control loan fund agreements with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency and/or the Ohio Development Authority for the construction of the sanitary sewer reconstruction 2018 large diameter lining project and declaring an emergency. Mr. Ludell.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. This is for us to enter an agreement to apply for these monies for our CMOM program. Through our consent decree, we have identified these large diameter sections of either combination or sanitary sewer that we're going to either have to line or to repair. Okay, so this application here for this loan, we did receive a $1 million grant from the OPWC for this project, but the rest is coming from the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund. So what we will apply for is a 45-year loan, is what we're going to apply for, and I won't know the interest rate till we get down to the application portion of it. The next piece will be the sections identifying what we are doing in this large project.
Thank you. Mr. Little, is lining the project less expensive than refurbishing, or does that just depend upon?
Well, what we do when we TV and clean it, we identify it. So if it's fractures or cracks, then lining would be cheaper. Now, if there's holes or if it's caved in, obviously you can't do that. So lining is a more economical way to do it. You don't have to dig up the road. I mean, sometimes you might have to take a top off of a manhole on some of these large ones, but for the most part, you can work right through the manhole. So they bypass pump the sewer around the section you're doing, and then they go ahead and line it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of council? Councilwoman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What is the 40% contingency?
Well, the thing is, when you get down in there and they can't line the pipe and they have to go back and dig it up, or they have to do something else to rehabilitate the pipe, so we do put a contingency in there for that, so we don't have to come back to you. It happened down in the Wilbeth area when we did that pipe. We lined probably over 1,000 feet, but we did have a 300-foot section that we could not line physically. So they had to go in there and actually dig it up and replace the pipe.
So we would normally do it at about 40%? Is that normal?
Yes.
Is that normal? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any other questions? Councilman Hook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. bringing up that question of contingency and what it's there for, and if we don't use it,
Then we don't,
then it just, does that just come off of the cost of the project?
the cost will be, once we do the project, and, you know, if it's 40% less, then that's all the project will take the loan for.
Okay, so we aren't,
Yes.
we won't be going in and
No.
and getting a loan for $2.8 million and then, right, okay,
Right.
thank you.
And what is your pleasure?
Consents fund.
May I have a motion for consent on this piece? Consent. Thank you. May I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, we will go on to number 8. This is an ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service or his designee after publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts for construction of the sanitary sewer reconstruction 2018 large diameter line project and declare an emergency. Mr. Little, you.
So this is the other piece, and this is the construction piece. And to give you an example of what we're doing, just one section, there's 650 feet of 24-inch pipe under Route 77. So if you can imagine having to replace that pipe under 77, so lining is going to be the best avenue here. So,
But lining can't be used unless it's small fractures. I mean, it's like,
well, not necessarily. I mean, the integrity of the pipe, but if it's caving in, no, obviously. But if there's fractures and cracks, absolutely, yes. That's why we're TVing and cleaning every 5 years and watching it and identifying to make sure it doesn't get that bad.
thank you. Any committee members have questions or concerns? Any members of council? Seeing none?
Consent's
Consent.
fine.
Motion for consent, please. I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. Number 9, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into water pollution control loan fund agreements with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency and the Ohio Water Development Authority for the construction of the Cahuga Street Storage Facility project and declare an emergency. Mr. Little.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So this piece and the next piece are improvements that we're going to make to the Cahuga Street Storage Facility. And this is the application for a 30-year WPCLF loan that we're asking for. A good chunk of this money is to do river restoration at the outfall of the Cahuga Street Storage Facility. That is about almost $700,000 of this money is to do river restoration. So the rest of it is the gates on that storage, CSO storage basin have never really worked properly. In the last few years, we've had a lot of trouble with them, so we're replacing them with new technology gates. And some of the other things we're doing, that ground, if you remember, was very unstable. So we're going to remove all the concrete and put in actually a stone driveway around to work on it, because we feel like if we replace the concrete, it's going to be a continuing problem. So to eliminate that problem, we're going to go back with just a stone-based driveway.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of council? Councilwoman Sims.
So Chris, I think I heard you, thank you, Madam Chair. I think I heard you say, do you say we don't know what the interest rate is? And is there any reason, or are we applying for this in, I see we have them kind of separated out. Are we applying for it in one lump sum? Or is?
You mean all these projects?
Projects, yeah.
No, they're all separate. They're all separate applications.
And so are they carrying the same interest rate you anticipate, or we just don't know?
Well, some of these projects, you will be able to get lower interest rates on what you're doing, okay? So if it's like, if you remember down on Rack 22, we got a 0% at 45 years for the nutrient removal part of it. But the infrastructure, we might get a 2% or 3%. So for this is all construction, it won't be 0%. Now, if the EPA comes out with a 0%, obviously we're going to apply for it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Mr. Lettle, I think this is good that we can make improvements and upgrades that we weren't able to, and maybe we didn't even know about at that time because things have changed. Do you kind of foresee that we will continually be doing, maybe not to this extent that we are doing here, but as those that we're putting in now, that we'll tweak them as the years go on with technology or things that are new and better?
Absolutely. You know, currently, the basin we're building on Hazel, Racks 1011, Economic Development found a company overseas called Ecotin that builds these tipping buckets. They have found a place in Akron, and they are going to move into Akron, open a company, and build some of these things here. So they're actually building stuff for us. They're building stuff for KB Bioenergy currently. But until they could have opened up a factory here, Logan Machine on Home Avenue, it's been there forever, built the tipping buckets for Hazel Street. So local company building things here that otherwise, and hopefully they'll be able to build them for other places around the country. So it's a good story.
I'm glad I gave you the segue for that because I did not know that. Thank you. Okay, what is your pleasure on this piece?
Consent's fine.
Do I have a motion for consent? Okay, do I have a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. Okay, the ordinance number 10. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts for the improvement, repair, and/or rehabilitation of the Cauga Street Storage Facility and associated areas, CSO Rack 40, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Lutz.
This is the construction piece. So this would be the driveway, the stream restoration we're talking about doing, and the other improvements.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from members of council or on the committee? Any questions from members of council? Seeing and hearing none, consent? I have a motion for consent. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. Number 11, and our last piece to come before us, is a resolution approving and confirming the reappointment of Donald Christian, Mark Deering, and Renee Green to the Metropolitan Regional Transit Authority Board of Trustees and declaring an emergency. Ellen.
Thank you, Chairwoman. These are 3 of the 6 appointments that the City of Akron has on the Metro Board. All 3 are currently serving, so these are renewal terms for all 3 of those members.
And if I do recall, I probably have it in my notes over here, but their resumes and qualifications are, the clerk does have them if we...
Yes, I'm not sure if Renee Green's actual written resume is there, but I'm sure we have it on file somewhere from her various appointments to commissions. But yes, I believe Mark Derrick's and Donald Christian's are attached.
So if none of you caught that, just know that they are there if you want to look at them. And what is your pleasure?
Consent agenda is fine. All terms have just recently expired,
And
so whatever the
3-year
pleasure.
terms, correct?
They're 3-year terms, correct.
Are there any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of council? Hearing and seeing none. Consent agenda? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any against? One abstention from Councilman Kamer. Okay. This will be placed on the consent agenda. Is there anything else to come before public service? Hearing and seeing none, we are adjourned. Couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting stuff on here. I had 2018. I kept thinking, why, this doesn't look at all like what I'm looking at today. But I had already looked at all the first before I came down, but I
5% done right now.
did college, which is somehow I hadn't gotten into my...
Yeah. All right, we're going to go ahead and move forward and call the public safety meeting to order, please. All members are present, and we did hold a meeting on September 23rd where we had one piece that we suspended the rules on. Can I get approval of the minutes, please?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Hoke. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Do we have somebody here for this piece? It's gonna
We
be
don't,
you.
I don't know where they are, but I can either make a quick call, or you can take time and we can meet again next week. I apologize. on
No, that's
behalf
fine.
of-
Okay, we'll take time. Do you still want me to read it in?
Sure, yeah, I think that would make
Okay.
sense.
I'll read this in, authorizing the purchasing agent without the formality of advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts with Tailor Made Ambulance to provide for the remounting and refurbishment of one 2007 Tailor Made emergency medical unit and declare an emergency. Obviously, we don't have a representative here to present the legislation, so we'll take time. Do I call for a vote for time?
You don't need
No?
to.
All right, we're at time. Anything else come before us? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks.
Nice and sweet. Did you start early?
If we could call the Public Utilities Committee to order. Can I get a motion and approval on our previous meeting minutes from September the 9th?
Councilwoman Symbols, can you just wait 1 second till Bob gets back in the seat?
Yes, Mr. Hoke, we need to wait for Bob. Sorry, Bob.
Motion for approval?
All in favor? Aye. Okay. We have two pieces before us. The first one is ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts to provide water service connections and eliminate certain existing public water systems as part of the Akron PWS regionalization project and declaring an emergency. Mr. Little, Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. We brought you something similar last year like this. We've been working with the Ohio EPA, and a private water system is something that it could be a well or a very small system. So we've been working with them, and all these 12 that are identified in this legislation abut our water lines. Okay, so we have water lines that abut these properties, and we are going to work with the Ohio EPA and the owners to connect to our water. So there'll be new water customers, and obviously we'll eliminate those small public water systems which are regulated by the Ohio EPA. So some of these systems, there's a few trailer parks that the way it'll work is it'll be a master meter. So we don't assume any responsibility on private property. There'll be one meter, we will meter the entire trailer park, and they'll be responsible for all the infrastructure inside. So we're not picking up really any infrastructure responsibilities.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from committee members? Any questions from council members? What's your pleasure?
Consent's fine.
Okay, can I get a motion for consent?
Motion for consent.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Our second piece, one second, if I can get to it. Ordinance amending and/or supplementing Title V, Public Works, Chapter 50, Sewers, Section 50.22, Sewer Service Charges of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Akron to establish summer sprinkling program rates for residential customers in the city and declaring an emergency. This piece was offered by Mr. Hoke. So Mr. Hoke, if you'd like to speak to this.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. This is something that I've, looked at, worked at, talked about numerous times in committee over the years that I've been down here, and felt that now was a time that we needed to look at it and bring something forward. And with the handout that I gave to everybody, I was going to read in, and if you want to follow along on that, this is wastewater or sewer bills vary summer to winter. A flow-based procedure such as Akron's uses a meter charging each residential customer for the amount of fresh water used through their water piping system inside and outside of the home. This process also charges for the wastewater or sewer usage at the same amount. The current amendment being presented today to this process will acknowledge that all water through metering may not enter the wastewater system during the set summer months of April through September. Wastewater usage for the summer months will be set during the winter months, average from October through March. The only time there will be a change or average used will be if the resident's meter shows more water usage in the summer months using the winter month average. All water usage through the meter is not changed or discounted. We still pay for all of the water that comes through the meter. Examples of the extra water usage in the summer months are watering gardens, flowers, and lawns, washing cars, washing houses, concrete sidewalks and drives, decks or patios, filling swimming pools, family or kid size, kids running and playing in sprinklers. There's a large contingent of community gardens through numerous organizations in our city. Many residents are using their home system to water their vegetable gardens and flowers, including low-income and immigrant residents who rely on their gardens to help with their cost of living. One more thought is that the extra water used but not billed through the sewer system reduces the amount of water burden on the collection systems. This plan could also increase water usage and water revenue. If you look at page 2, just to the north of us, we have the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, and this sewer district is also going through a large EPA mandate program and doing different things to improve their water. And if you look at this, I think that everybody will recognize a number of different communities and cities and villages that are involved with this Northeast Ohio Sewer District, and each one of these districts get a summer sewer rate schedule with their water bills. One in particular that I noticed that kind of jumped out here was Hudson, and I know that Hudson is kind of split in the fact that part of Hudson is in the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, and part of Hudson is taken care of by the City of Akron Sewer District. So in essence, part of Hudson is being allowed to get summer sewer rates, and part of Hudson doesn't get it because we don't have it set up through our system through Akron. So that was one that jumped out at me at that. Looking at the next page and looking at cities around the United States, there's a number of cities through the United States, and this is, it took me a while to track some of these down and get them all printed out, but you can see that there's probably about 25 or 30 cities here that are just listed on this that have this program. Larger cities, more recognizable names: Ann Arbor, Michigan, Seattle, Washington, Eugene, Oregon, Lexington, Kentucky. And it goes on down the list and talks about a number of lists cities that are under this program. The next page, I included a copy of my own water bill, and with the following page is also the first page is my water bill from about mid-July to about mid-August. The next page is from mid-August to mid-September. And the reason that I put this on there is just to kind of give you an idea as to what this summer sewer rate would help out and possibly do for the resident. And if you look at the sewer charge on the first page of the billing, the bill was 5 CCF, and it came out to a charge of $53.30 at the set rate of $10.65 per CCF. Now, the reason I put that in there is because in August and during this second billing period that I put in there is that we had a storm go through Ellet, and it caused quite a bit of damage through some of the neighborhoods, and it also went through Talmadge and up through Kent. But in through Ellet, and in particular in my case, I lost a large tree in the backyard. So in order to get that tree taken care of, I had to have a tree company come in, and they came in, took out the tree, took out the stump, I had to replant the grass, I had to re-landscape back there. And I also had to fix the areas where they had to bring the machinery in to get around the house and into the backyard. And some of the machinery, did put a lot of dirt and marks and everything on my driveway that, I wanted to clean off also. So in order to do that, I had to use water. So I had to use water to plant the grass. I had to use water to clean the concrete, and do the re-landscaping. So the difference between the month before and this month, I went from a 5 CCF to a 7 CCF, which increased my water bill by $21.31. If my water bill would have a summer sewer rate set from my winter charges and my winter use, and I'm going to estimate that my winter use is going to be somewhere in around a 4 or 5, somewhere in that area, so that if this rate had been set, then my water usage, by using the extra water, and of course paying for the water for this, but the sewer rate would have been set at a 5, and I would have saved $21.31. There's a number of other residents out there that I'm sure that have incurred costs like this, or they've also incurred extra costs from using their water for like I have in the first page, for the gardens, flowers, lawns, washing cars, washing the houses, swimming pools, letting the kids play in the sprinklers. There's a lot of this water that does not hit the sewers, and it stays on your property. It goes into the ground and evaporates back up in the air, and then we get it again. But this is what the summer sewer rate is about. It's about helping people. I know that we've talked in chambers and different committees and different meetings about our residents and about the amount of cost that is coming to them through the mandates that are being put on us, and what they're having to do, and especially our low income, and what it does to them, and the immigrant residents that are coming in, and like I said, who are relying on their gardens to help them out with food during the summertime and help with their cost of living. So that's pretty much what this. I know it does. It's kind of hard to read and understand. In the legislation itself, with that type of language. But I hope I've given everybody a little bit more information and interest into what this is and why I felt that we should do something in order to help. Like I said, the Northeast Ohio Regional District, just north of us, and looking at all of those cities that are in there, and they do have a summer sewer rate program. I mean, there's Cleveland itself is doing this. Other larger cities and in the area that are in this program. Parma's a pretty good size city. Macedonia, South Euclid, a number of them in there that are working with this program and helping their residents. So I'm hoping that with this, that we can do something to alleviate a little bit of the cost to our residents with what has been coming to them, and help out with the water bill or the sewer bill, the sewer charge, and then it, like I said, it could even increase water consumption, because I'm sure that there's people out there that aren't using their water and not using it to do things because of the cost. So if we can bring that cost down during the summer, I think that would be something that we're here for and something to help our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoag. Do I have any questions from committee members? Mr. Swirsky?
Okay, so it's going to increase the water usage. Do we have any
In your
estimate?
mic. Can you get closer to your mic?
Do we have any estimates how much the increase will be based on if it is true that all these other cities have had this experience?
There wasn't anything in anything that I found that said that there was increased usage. Most of them had said that it could increase the water usage, but there weren't any numbers or anything that came up with, something that did. In our area, we don't usually have a problem with water or getting it, and and you can see by on the water bill that the actual water is about 4.5 times less than the sewer rate. So it gives you that opportunity to be able to use that water without having to worry about paying for that 4.5 times increase, with the sewer bill, especially with the water not going to the sewer. It's staying pretty much on your property or on your land.
Okay. So you're basing this on the assumption that we have a limitless supply of water?
No, I'm just saying that we haven't had problems with our supply of water. We've been able to get all the water that we've needed.
Okay.
Haven't we?
Yeah. I mean, there are people around the country trying to conserve water. I know in some extreme cases like California, whatever, it's like an urgent matter. But in the Midwest, there are people who are saying that the water supply here is a treasure and that we need to protect it, and that we need to limit our use when possible. But this is talking about increase, as you say here, increases water usage.
I said it could. I didn't say it does.
Yeah, you did say it could. Okay.
It could. It could
Okay.
increase. There's nothing there that says it does or doesn't increase.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. And water revenue? You want to explain that a little bit? How it could increase water revenue?
Well, if people do use more water because they're not paying for the sewer rate, it could increase the amount of water going through and increasing the water usage itself. If you increase your water usage, you're going to increase the revenue through the water, because we are paying for the water. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't take away from revenue on water. It could only increase it. It doesn't take it away from
Okay, but it is a could, I guess, is what you're saying.
Could, yes.
Okay. Do we have any means for, do we keep track of our water usage? I mean, to see if this proposal would affect the residents in a sort of more equitable way, or would it just really benefit the people who use a lot of water? Do we have any way of tracking that? Or I'd like to get information about that. Like, are we using water the same in all of our sectors of our city? Or would this be something that benefits primarily, it seems like, people who use a lot of water? I don't know if you've taken a look at that issue, like.
Well, yeah, if your water usage doesn't increase and it doesn't increase your sewage rate, then there isn't anything there. You're not in the game. The thing is that this is for watering your garden, flowers, lawns. Letting the kids run through the sprinklers. you know, washing down your house, your concrete sidewalks and drives, your deck, your patio.
I can read the list you got here.
Yeah, okay, so yeah.
But we haven't taken a look, there's no profile of our community to see how this would affect, whether it would benefit the entire public, or whether it would benefit certain sections of the city.
Well, it benefits the entire public because it's an option for all residential water contract homes. Okay, it doesn't include businesses. It doesn't include multi-family. It's either for single or you know, double residential. I mean, yeah, I mean. Multifamily and large apartments, I don't know that they use a lot of outside water. This is mostly for residential and in that area.
So it's sort of confined to a certain population.
Well, what would you feel that it should be?
No, I'm just asking.
Okay, well, I don't know.
I'm not proposing anything.
I know, but
I'm
yeah.
just asking the impact on the city, trying to understand it.
Well, it's for the residents of the city.
Okay.
Who we represent.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Anybody else have questions?
I got Mr. Freeman, Mr. Neal, Council President.
This is probably a question, I think it pertains. We have a program where you can have a separate meter installed if you're watering your yard, correct?
Yes, currently we call that the hose bib program.
The
hose bib program. So you could have up to, I believe it's 3 of your outside spigots, and it's outside spigots only, be connected to a separate meter that we charge water only on. And okay, so it's you want to use 5 HCF a month times the $2.73, then you'll be billed at that rate. Okay, so it's before. So as the water line comes into your house, there's a T, and then the one goes through your regular house meter, and then the other line goes through this other meter. So it doesn't go through the first meter and then the second meter. It's a totally separate meter in your house.
So that the onus then is upon the homeowner to do whatever replumbing needs to be done.
Yeah.
Inside the house.
Yes.
Okay. And then the next question, and it brings up, how much longer will it be? A couple more years? Right now we bill by CCF. Is that not going to change with our new system?
Yes. We're going to bill in gallons. So right now a CCF is 748 gallons. So like he said, some months you're at 4, then the next month you're at 5. But if you're not quite at 4 at the end of the billing cycle, you could be, for lack of better terms, 3 toilet flushes away from getting to the next cycle. So boom, we read your meter, then you're at the next one, and then some people say, well, why did my bill jump, you know, by $20 or, you know, well, it's $13. That's why. Right. So to tighten that up with the new meter program, with the leak detection to help the residents.
Okay. And then probably one question for you, Mr. Hoke, because we do have places that use both our sewer and our water. Is this something that we would extend, I mean, outside the municipality, or?
No, at this point in time, this is for Akron residents.
Okay. All right, that's all the questions.
One clarification
Yes.
on your question there, though. We do not, Hudson is county sewers. It's not Akron sewers. When you mention Hudson, part of it's Akron and part of it's Cleveland Water. The part that's Akron Water is county sewers. Their sewers do not come to Akron.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
Right,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah, and probably the other thing, you know, we want to look at one of these days is what's it cost sewer department in revenue, which I don't know how we would determine that, but.
Well, just about a month ago, we have re-engaged with Raff Tellis, which is our consultant that does our rate analysis. and they are currently in the process of that, which I think they're a few months away from reporting to us. So this was something that wasn't figured in when we first did the first rate analysis on setting our rates. So until that's done, how this would affect that. But we did not ask them to do that. We did not ask them to take an effect of a summer watering rate or, okay. We look to see with all the improvements we've made, all the money we've saved in interest, all the integrative planning we've been doing to do another rate analysis, what the impacts will be on our rates moving forward.
What's the, follow up on my first question, what's the cost for the second meter? Does the city come in and install that meter and then?
It's up, what you're given is basically a schematic. And you don't have to hire a licensed plumber, okay? So it shows when you're done, you have to have a valve here, you have to have 11-inch opening, I believe it's 11-inch opening, and then the outlet of the meter will go to an outside spigot. So we will come in and verify that that line goes to an outside spigot. It can go just to one. You could do all your watering from one spigot. So we verify that it doesn't go to the washing machine or the hot water tank, and then we come in and drop it in. We do not charge you for that extra meter.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So that meter is probably about $200. We maintain it, we give it to you, and then it's, you know, it's still ours. If it breaks, we fix it. And then we read it every month and we bill you for that.
Okay, so there's two separate
meters, and we drive by, boom, boom.
It reads two. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Several things came to mind when Mr. Freeman was speaking. One, and I appreciate you looking at this, Mr. Hope, because the thing that hit me was when you talked about folks that use their hose to water community gardens. And from a cost standpoint, if the plan covers the use of water, if it's not going into the sewer, so to speak, technically there shouldn't be a cost. Technically, there shouldn't be a cost. So we're covering the cost of the water. I don't think we're not trying to get away from cutting the cost of the water. What we are trying to look at is if we're charging people for their water going into the sewer when it's not going into the sewer. So, like you, Mr. Freeman, the one thing that came to mind was the cost of the extra meter. What I'm really interested in is the new technology that we're going to use, if that will help us be able to zero in. But something clicked when you said, you know, you're just a few flushes away from it jumping to the next charge. I'm wondering if with this new technology, we're going to find that we're technically possibly overcharging people. In the sense where if just one flush can jump me all the way up to the next rate, the next CCF, maybe if it's actually measuring my actual gallons of usage, maybe I'm not using all that water. But because of our system automatically jumping you up to the next rate, you know, I'm being billed for water potentially I'm not using.
Well,
So,
one thing we've found with these residential meters, they're very accurate. And we've pulled meters out, bench test them. So we don't feel like the new program is going to change anybody's end bill, okay? They're that accurate. But like you said, we'll be able to bill in gallons. So if
Okay.
you only use, you know, the halfway mark, it's going to be able to budget your pretty much if you use the same every month, but you go from 4 to 5 or 3 to 4, that's not going to happen anymore because you're going to see it. So it'll flatten that bill out from month to month.
okay, because two other things. One, I was wondering if when residents use their system, if it helps, you know how we flush the hydrants, and sometimes there's a break in the line. I don't know if we've ever measured how much water comes through the breaks or how long it takes us to fix a break and how much water comes out of a break. Because my thought is, if there was a way, using what Mr. Hope did, where we get a look at, is there a summer spike? And are the bills kind of constant during the non-summer months? Where we could say, well, hey, that's because people are washing their cars, doing their gardens, filling pools, whatnot. This may not be as difficult as we're making it, because we're making people are going to pay for the water. And if we have the crude analysis like he did, where he looked at his bill, and we see this summer spike, it's probably because people are doing the outdoor things. But the one thing I'd like to find out, is because I asked, one council colleague says that she has the extra meter, is if with the new technology that we're bringing, if that will help us be able to do some of the analysis for those who may not be able to afford that extra meter. Because, you know, a savings of $20 may not sound like a lot to some of us, but again, if you've been following the beacon about the, you know, just the economic hardship of a lot of folks, $20, 3-4 out of savings of $80 to $100 over a summer can mean a lot to some people. So just to, again, kind of like encapsulate what I'm asking, is if the new technology is going to make it easier for us to monitor even something like this summer surge, so to speak, to where somebody wouldn't have to pay to get the new meter in. We won't know till we put it in if we're actually going to find out that, you know,
I think that's part of the rate analysis we'll be doing.
Okay.
Okay.
But that won't.
And part of the other thing with the new meters and the technology, for the people that have that slight leak, this is going to pick it up.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Right now, they won't know it. So maybe if that toilet only leaks just a little bit, but over a whole month it ticks you up one, that's $13. We'll be able to, you know, after like 3 days, we'll be able to send them a message. You have water usage continuously, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Okay, you need to check something.
And that's what, I think we were also talking about how significant that technology is, even from a standpoint of a safety standpoint of, you know, somebody saying, hey, I haven't been able to get in touch with my mother, and we could tell, hey, well, there's been no usage in there. That, you know, so there's a lot of benefits to that. I think what we'll find out also is, as we're able to be more exact on our reading, and I don't know if this, what they're doing right now is going to be able to give us that information. We may find that because we're stopping those small leaks and because we're now exact on the usage, that there may be a decrease in what we're billing because, you know, we're more exact in our reading. And I just hope that, you know, when we set our rates, they were based on a median number.
Household income.
We knew some people could, pardon? Yeah, and we knew some people couldn't afford that. I don't know if what we're doing is able to actually be based on actual usage. If our actual usage doesn't meet what we need to pay our bill, you know, what do we do then? So, again, I appreciate you at least looking at this, but it just raised a lot of other questions.
Oh,
so, because the bottom line is, we shouldn't be billing people for stuff that they're not using. And if it's not going down the sewer and we can help people, you know, because I know the community gardens, I know you guys have worked with folks in the community, it has been a big challenge. So, thanks, Madam Chair.
Madam President.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple questions, because I'm just curious, and maybe they're probably questions that will be better be able to be answered by the Service Department, because I think Councilman Swarsky kind of touched on it. I'm just curious, do we know what wards in the city consume more water? Where do we see the spikes? I'm just interested if you could get us that information back. I'm also just interested to find out how much this particular program would cost the city. Do we know that?
We're not prepared to answer any of those questions.
I'm saying, is it possible that you can get us that information? I'm sure you might not have it today, but.
We can work on it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That analysis Raf tells us is doing, that we've engaged, that will help us answer some of these questions.
Okay, Councilwoman Key.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, if we're going to look at what wards use more summer water than not, then I think we should look at with the leaks, because we never asked for that when it came to the forgiveness of the leaks. What wards do we take care of in that way too? And I'm going to imagine that the rate analysis impact is going to change a little bit from years ago, because we're pushing rain barrels now on people. not pushing them, I mean, they're gladly accepting them, but I don't know if back when we did the initial one or the initial one was done, if there was reason to calculate those at the rate that we have them now. And I just as a ward council person, of late, and I'm going to say it probably started in April, I had many people that called or emailed me concerned about paying their water bill because there was an additional charge now if they charged it, or if they, I think if they charged it and if they did it automatically through their billing, there was an additional. And apparently, it was enough that they noted it. And I think if we look at the cities that are presently do it, we ask ourselves, why are they doing it? Why? It's, you know, it's a give back to the residents in a way. I don't know how we could possibly know how much this is going to cost our first year. I don't know how you would know that for sure, except to say that these cities took a chance to give back to their residents. And I don't know if we've concluded with the new meters that we're coming out with, how that's going to be paid for. Have we made that decision of how that will be paid for? Of the new meters that calculate better?
Well, we have been planning on this for years because we knew at some point, so it'll come from the water fund.
Okay, it'll come from, it won't come out of, it won't be in a bill that you'll see this. Okay.
No, the residents will not pay for that.
Well, I just think, once again, I'm not sure what we're talking. Obviously, a number of cities thought it was worth giving it back. I look at all the reasons here, and then the actual case that Councilman Hook brought forward of his own bill to see the jump. And if we're not using the sewers to collect that water, I just think ethically, if we can do this, we should do this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm hoping that we could take a little bit of time so they can answer the questions that people had. If you could, when you answer the questions that Council President put forth and Mr. Freeman as well, could you give us a number of how many residents have a second meter? And if possible, what's the average rate usage on those second meters? Is there a requirement for them obtaining a second meter? And then maybe this one is for Mr. Hoke. You mentioned something about the multifamily units wouldn't be included in this. So a question for you is, what if it's a multifamily housing that may have a pool? Or if they have a community garden? So I'm sort of kind of trying to figure out, would we want to include them from the process, because they may have a pool there?
I don't think with a multifamily or with a large contingency like that, it would be something that would be personal. Okay, that would be something that would be included in their living.
Okay.
Okay. This is basically for residential and residents and lawns and flowers and gardens and a lot of those things. I don't know that there's that many pools out there that it's going to affect, other than the fact that kiddie pools. Whenever you have small kid pools and stuff, it might take you 20, 30, 50 gallons to fill a kid's pool. And how many times a week are the kids going to go out during the summer and play in that pool, or turn on the sprinkler and run through that? And that water is not going down the drain. I don't know that it matters which ward is, would this affect more than the other one. We're talking about city. We're talking about residents. And who is the city? The city is the residents that live here, the residents that use our services and pay the bills. We are the city. and the city is our constituents. So, you know, that's what we're looking at here.
I have one more question for you.
Okay.
If you could get some info from maybe one of the other cities that already use the summer sprinkling program rates, if maybe call one of the municipalities and they can sort of kind of send us something to look at to see how it works for them and how much it may be costing them, I think that would help a lot, because it'll sort of kind of give us a visual of what they're doing there and how that would relate to us here in the city of Akron.
I don't think this is rocket science. I don't think we're talking about hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars here. You know, we're you know, you can look at my bill. My bill was $21 for that particular month. Mr. Neal talked about maybe, you know, if we get something like that, is it going to save somebody $100 over a course of the summer months? Is it going to affect every user? No. Is it going to help every user? Possibly not. But it will help the people that are utilizing this. You know, as I said, talking about low income and immigrants, the immigrants that are coming in, and I know I've got immigrants that have moved into my neighborhood, and right away one of the first things they did was put a garden in their backyard. And you know, if you drive up through North Hill and go through those neighborhoods up there, you can see a lot of gardens up there. And those gardens are being watered through the house. And through the house, they're getting charged for that water to go down the sewer. And also, you know, thinking about that, are we in violation or out of compliance by charging for all the water and not giving allowances on the sewer rates? Like other numerous cities are doing, cities that are right around us, and municipalities and you know, our neighbors around the United States. You know, it may not be against the law for what we're doing right now, but is it ethical for us to be charging for something that they're not getting? Because if people are using that water and it is going into the ground and it's not going into our sewer, then is it ethical for us to charge for that? I don't think it is. And that's why, you know, this is being brought forward. I think it's something that's been looked at in other areas, and I think it's something that the city of Akron has to look at for our residents and for the people that live here and for the people that pay the bills and for the people that pay, you know, for us to be here. So, you know, I don't understand why it matters which ward would benefit one or the other as to you know, how much it would be. I think that's you know, I think that's an unethical and question that you know, didn't need to be brought up. We're talking about a whole city, not about anybody in particular. I mean, you want to break it down to streets? I don't think we need to do that.
If we could get a motion for time, so Mr. Little and Mr. Moore could get some of those.
Motion for time.
Can I get a second? All in favor? All right. Okay, so we're going to take time on this while we gather some information. And if there's nothing else coming before us, we are adjourned.